freedom of speech was an important part. The freedom to protest against the bourgeois was a very important part of the revolution.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the one-on-one interview series. I'm Max Nospish, the manager of education and visitor experiences here at the First Amendment Museum. Today, I'm joined by our wonderful guest who has donated his time very generously, Mikhail Ivanovich. Mikhail, thanks for joining us. You want to tell people what you're about?
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Mikhail. I am a student currently in college. I'm in my senior year of college. I'm a big participant in our local youth communist chapter, our SDS, and a few other organizations that have to do with socialism, smaller. But yeah, I'm just here to talk about the First Amendment, how it relates to my current life, and a few other issues that are relevant in our culture today.
So why is the First Amendment important? What is its goals and purpose?
Yeah, so our First Amendment is really important to the U.S. I think it was one of the most important things enshrined within the U.S. U.S.'s Bill of Rights, and I think it's important as it kind of distinguishes us from a lot of the European powers at the time, and really helped us establish a democratic state, one of the first main democratic states in the world. And I think these protection of our civil liberties, such as our freedom of speech and our practicing of religion, are really important to the U.S. And its preservation as a democracy.
You've described yourself as a keyboard warrior, and you often get into heated arguments in the comments section on sites like YouTube and Xhamster. Is there really any value in this sort of online discourse? Is online discourse toxic, or is there value to it?
Okay, it's a very good question. To answer it, I want you to close your eyes for a moment um, and imagine the old Roman forums 2,000 years ago. Back then, the Roman Forum was a place of discussion, arguments, and all sorts of political thought being shared about. I feel like online communities in which this discussion is continued are the sort of continuation of those old Roman forums of discussion, arguments, and sharing of thoughts and ideas, including on websites like YouTube, Xhamster, Reddit, and 4chan. I think all of those are modern continuations using the internet of the old Roman forums, these old places of thoughts, the old Greek agoras of back in the day. This is a continuation of democracy that was started by the ancient Greeks over 2,000 years ago. And I feel
Absolutely.
like
And what a legacy. Yeah.
I feel like the internet is just a natural continuation with our evolution of technology of those places.
You're a self-avowed Maoist communist. Do Maoist communists support freedom of speech, religion, press, and assembly, or do you see that as bourgeois decadence?
So within the original kind of like Marxist thought, as well as what Marx said himself, and then a few others that followed him, Trotsky, and so and so forth, and including Mao himself. Freedom of speech was an important part. The freedom to protest against the bourgeois was a very important part of the revolution and the overthrowing of the bourgeois kind of regime that was in place at the time. However, I think that once that revolution has been achieved, and once the bourgeois are overthrown, and we are now in a kind of government led by the proletariat, I feel that the free speech, that the ideals of free speech are no longer necessary, unless they are advantageous to the ruling party, to the communist regime, to the communist state. So I do not necessarily see it as bourgeois decadence, but I think it is absolutely unnecessary and has no place in a true glorious communist nation, which hopefully the U.S. will be one day.
You've been actively fighting voter suppression in the state of Georgia. Tell me about that. Is there voter suppression in Georgia, and what does that look like? What should we do to stop it?
Yeah, I definitely think there is pretty heavy and horrible voter suppression in Georgia, especially against communist parties that are present in Georgia and other communist political candidates. I was in the most recent election, the most recent state election. I was voting for a local self-avowed communist state representative. Um, I won't give their name out just for privacy reasons, but I was going to go vote there at the local voting stations that were in my area, and I was stopped by a handful of those MAGA Republican types, where they in fact held me at gunpoint, and I kid you not, they held me at gunpoint when and they asked me who I was voting for. When I said the name of my candidate, they threatened me with violence if I didn't change my vote. And this is not a isolated incident. This is happening all across Georgia. I've seen it in Atlanta as well personally. Police officers stopping people, asking them who they're voting for. This is a really bad thing in the South. I know you guys are based up in Maine. It's probably a lot better there, but in the South, you have people regularly threatening violence, using weapons and guns. The police are sometimes involved with it as well. um,
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know it's so bad down there. Amazing. But thanks for being the first to break this story
yeah,
about. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you won't see it in the media,
Mhm.
especially because this bourgeois media wants to stop this kind of thought, stop this kind of stuff spreading out.
Yeah,
So you're not going to see it in there. Yeah.
totally. So you're a self-described hardcore atheist with a large following on sites such as 4chan and Reddit. What is the experience of being an atheist in the USA like in the 2020s?
Um, I'm a kind of self-avowed internet atheist. Especially atheism is very integral to communist thought. There's no place for religion. There's no place for freedom of religion, by the way, in communist thought either. I think it should be removed. Sorry, I'm getting off track, but I am a self-avowed, like internet atheist, really important. And I have a lot of followers, like you said, on 4chan and Reddit, where I talk about my beliefs or my lack of beliefs. In my experience with religion, I was brought up religious. Actually, I was brought up as a Zoroastrian, small, very small knit um, Zoroastrian community here in Georgia. But I think there was a sort of golden period with internet atheism that is now past. Back in the past decade, it was it was a lot more flourishing. It was a lot more like sort of okay to be an atheist, and more celebrated. And people, finding their way away from religion was a lot more celebrated. But I think with the kind of radicalization in the U.S. that we're seeing, especially with the sort of evangelical far right, it's getting really dangerous to be an atheist. I feel, I almost feel like the ancient Christians back in the Roman Empire at this point. The kind of persecution that we face daily, especially here in the South, is horrible. It's dramatic. I've been regularly harassed for my beliefs. I've been doxxed several times on these online communities and threatened sent with threats sent to my house about my beliefs, and like forcing me to convert to Christianity. I hope that the situation it will change, but I think the only way it can change is, like I said, a communist revolution in which religion will be completely made obsolete because it has no place in the communist regime. Yeah,
Freedom of religion too.
yeah, yeah. Freedom of religion as well.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Ivanovich. Do you have any final words? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to get that out there? This is sort of your free speech moment. So,
Yeah. What I'd say is that one thing, like I've kind of gone throughout the course of this interview, kind of tearing down how the First Amendment I don't believe is important. It will be important in the future inevitable communist regime in the U.S. One thing I do think is very important is our Second Amendment and our access to guns. I know you guys don't really concern yourselves with the Second Amendment, but now that we're talking about the Bill of Rights, I would like to say, Marx believed it was really important for the proletariat to have access to guns. So this is kind of a message to everyone listening to this. you know, make use of your Second Amendment and stockpile if you can, because the communist revolution will be here in time, and it will be important for everyone, all the proletariats, all the peasantry of the United States, to be armed in that situation.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ivanovich. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this.
Of course, yeah, thank you. I'm always happy to talk about communism, talk about free speech, or the First Amendment and how it relates to communism.